There's this myth that Native people, specifically Mohawk people, didn't actually live in the Adirondacks before Europeans came, that they lived around the Adirondacks and only came to hunt or fish, that the Adirondacks weren't their territory. It's not true. It's been debunked. And there's a museum deep in the Adirondacks that has the receipts. The Six Nations Iroquois Cultural Center is chock full of artifacts and stories, and it's trying to grow with a new expansion. We visit on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Long Run Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor in Lake Placid, providing comprehensive wealth management, retirement, and financial planning solutions. LongRunWealth.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Wednesday, August 7th. First up, professional anglers from across the country are flocking to the North Country over the next few weeks. Competition for Major League Fishing's Bass Pro Tour kicked off in Massena on Tuesday. There are also big tournaments on Lake Champlain and another one on the St. Lawrence River next week. St. Lawrence Valley reporter Catherine Wheeler caught up with professional angler Jeff Sprague from Texas, who's out on the St. Lawrence River this week competing.
It's a really stressful, to be honest with you, because we have a score tracker. You know, it can become intense because we know what everyone has at all times, and you know whether you're in first place or last place. And so it turns from just regular fun fishing to, an intense competition.
Yeah, I'm wondering, how many times have you been here, and, what is significant to you about this place?
This is my third time to come here to Massena. This is my second time to compete here, but I've been here once for just fun. You guys truly have some of the biggest smallmouth in the world here on the St. Lawrence River. It's just a tremendous fishery. As you know, it's throughout the fishing community. Everyone knows about the St. Lawrence River. It's just one of those places that's really come to be on everyone's bucket list. Everybody wants to come here at one time or another, whether it's to compete or just to come fun fish. So it's just the sheer size of the smallmouth and the amount of fish that you can catch in a day here is it's really unique.
Take me out to when you're out on the river, what are you kind of using and how are you thinking about catching the biggest fish you can find?
We're in your late summer, and so the fish are offshore. We're looking for high spots out in the river that are, anywhere from, 40 foot deep all the way, up to, 20s. And there are some fish that will be caught shallow along the bank this week. The water here is crystal clear and it's just gorgeous. So that's what we're primarily targeting and how we're doing it. We're throwing a lot of drop shots, tube baits, jigs, forward facing sonar minnows. Those are the types of things that we're truly focusing on this week to compete, and that'll play in the event itself.
And then I guess kind of my last question for you is just, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about this week?
I'm excited to be here. This is it's kind of an important event for us because this is the last major event of the year. A lot of guys are hinging their 2025 season on how they finish this year, which means, we qualify for championships. For 2025, we qualify for a heavy hitters, a superstar event. Which means that, just a lot of different things it's on the line for a lot of anglers. For me personally, I've had a very successful year. I get to come here and fish freely. I get to have a good time. I've already pretty much qualified for everything. And so this is the last event and I can kind of just relax, go out and have a good time. Catch what I can catch. And if I do really well here, great. That's what I strive for.
That was Catherine Wheeler speaking with Major League Fishing's Jeff Sprague. Sprague's competing with 77 other anglers at Bass Pro Tour's last competition of the season in Massena this week. Professional anglers will also be out on Lake Champlain starting tomorrow for the Bassmaster Elite Series. Anglers will head out from the Plattsburgh City Marina at 7 in the morning each day. And the Bassmasters Elite Series concludes for the season next weekend on the St. Lawrence River in Waddington, August 15th through 18th. The Six Nations Iroquois Cultural Center is one of the North Country's only museums dedicated to indigenous history. It's a wooden building that sits on the side of a local highway just a few miles north of Saranac Lake. And now the museum's planning an expansion that it hopes will preserve its one-of-a-kind artifact collection. David Escobar went to visit and has this story.
Colorful beaded belts, leather drums, and arrowhead collections line every inch of wall space inside the Six Nations Iroquois Cultural Center. Museum Director David Fadden says his collection can be a bit overwhelming, but each artifact has a story.
It begins here in the shape that means many or a lot of something next to it.
Some of his favorite stories to tell are inscribed on wall-mounted wooden pictographs. Today, that's the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois tale of the constellation Big Dipper.
So you put these together, this means many winters ago in the past. That arrow pointing way back is when the story takes place. A long time ago.
Fadden and his family have been telling indigenous stories at the Cultural Center since 1954. Fadden grew up around the museum's current site in Onshayota. He says part of his museum's mission is dispelling common misconceptions of the Adirondacks' indigenous history.
And what has been a common narrative in the Adirondacks that I've witnessed throughout my life is that Native people weren't here. I never believed that. To me, it just isn't true, because in this small collection, we have artifacts that are local, just a couple miles down the road that were found by accident.
Many of the pieces inside the museum were created and owned by Fadden's grandfather, Ray, or donated by locals. Fadden says the museum's collection is still growing. The problem is he's running out of space.
Every year somebody donates something, and that's our problem, is we just have nowhere to display it. So they're in our homes, in our closets, and our homes are starting to look like museums now too.
So Fadden and the museum are planning an expansion. The Adirondack Land Trust helped the Cultural Center purchase over 300 acres of land adjacent to the site of the museum. Most of that land will be under conservation easement, and the Cultural Center's team is also planning a state-of-the-art museum space. The building will provide the museum with some necessary upgrades, like additional exhibit space and climate controls. That'll allow the museum to display more artifacts and preserve its collection from harsh summer weather. But Fadden says it won't be entirely new construction. He says he intends to preserve the character of the place by moving the current building into the heart of the new cultural center.
I guess my hope was to not lose the feel of this place, because it's so unique. When you come in here, even the smell, and it reminds me of my grandparents' attic. It's just you have that comfort feeling, and there's just so much stuff, and it's really neat. I don't want to lose that sense and that feel of this place.
Fadden says he wants the museum to be a model for sustainable building around the Adirondacks. Utilities will run using on-site solar and geothermal power. Fadden says he feels it's important for indigenous values like conservation to influence every aspect of the museum.
From an indigenous standpoint, when you know you're doing something harmful, you don't do it. You change it. You change your methods. And so our building will be reflective of that philosophy, that we're looking to the future to protect the earth and leave something here for our grandchildren.
The Cultural Center's expansion plan will require hours of careful curatorial work from the museum's relatively small staff. But Fadden sees the new museum as a community investment.
It's really exciting. It's a bit daunting for us, but it's exciting. And my goal is to preserve this collection for future generations, and to also have a space where it tells our history in a clear, comprehensive narrative of our history and our culture.
There's still a long way to go from having enough money for a new Six Nations Iroquois Cultural Center. The project comes with a $9 million price tag. Fadden says he hopes to finish fundraising for the expansion in the next 5 years. I'm David Escobar, North Country Public Radio in Onshayota.
David Escobar is NCPR's newest reporter. He's a Report for America core member who's reporting on diversity issues in the Adirondacks. It's a partnership with Adirondack Explorer magazine, and you'll be hearing a lot from him in the future. We're so excited to have you, David. More news on our website all the time, ncpr.org. Music today by Michael Farley of Canton and Matthew Johnson of Sackett's Harbor. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.